up until several years ago, they thought the giant squid out of Japan, off the coast of Japan, was, giant squid was a cryptid. It was mythological. Over time had reported these creatures, that can engulf ships and the Kraken and things like that. And,
watching that thing disappear.
Yes.
It was almost like a straight line. It was like it went behind a straight line and it was gone. Just completely gone.
And it did. It was like it slipped into it went into a house or something. It just all of a sudden it just went
like it went behind a wall.
Like it went behind a wall. That's where people start to ask the question, is it possible that there are some sort, and I know this is a stretch, but is it possible that they could be going into some sort of a portal or interdimensional being that can move into, thank you very much, Vesta, stepping into another place, for lack of a better word? All right, get the volume up. Hey, everybody. Jeff here with JFree906 and Beyond Our World with Mike and John. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
All right. And Mike, you're still out enjoying yourself out somewhere where the snow is like that deep?
Yes. Yeah, much deeper than that. Yeah, we are in southwest Utah in Bryan Head. And we got 12 inches last night and another 5 or 6 this afternoon. And that's on top of everything else they've had. I think they're over 400 inches. Not quite as bad as out in California, but even for these guys, this is a lot of snow out here. So, but good skiing, a lot of fun.
Good skiing. All right. And you and John, how you doing?
Yeah, great. Just
a lot of snow where you're at? No,
not at all.
I'll bring you some.
No, we don't want any.
Sure.
It's cold
none
out
here. None here in Texas either. Yeah, it's actually kind of warm in here right now. I got this long sleeve on, but anyway, so oh man, I tell you what, you got a nice little gift today too, didn't you, Mike, when you were at the store?
I did. So we were at the general store here in the little town that we're in, and of course my kids are running around finding all the Bigfoot stickers and Bigfoot T-shirts, and because it's full of all that, right? And I'm like, no, I've already got all that stuff. And I get up to the front counter, and I find Sasquatch Field Guide by none other than Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. And awesome. This isn't a joke. This is all of his research. It's got hair analysis, scat. It's got how to do a casting of a footprint, the different shapes of why they're that way, what a double track from a bear looks like. It's got size comparisons. It's got stride comparisons. I mean, it's all his research kind of in a nutshell in a nice, neat little field guide. And
I got to have one of those.
It's fantastic.
I have to have one of those from Jeff Meldrum and that's another guy. We got to get him on the show.
That would be phenomenal.
Have to get him on the show because I got a chance to talk to him when I was at Phenomenon last year and will again this year. And I tell you what, he interesting man. I mean, he talked about the godfather of research on this stuff. I mean, he knows it. So I'm telling you, definitely somebody to have on the show. So I wanted to give a few shout outs as we like to do here at the, oh my gosh, all the chat already. Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Tom Burns, Dina. They were all the first ones to join up. D Jones, Christy, Kat is in the house. Eva. Hey, Eva, how you doing? Good to see you. Off to Colombia, South America for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Wow. What's going on there, Eva? Do tell. So excited. Let's see. For this trip, visiting a friend who moved down there a few years ago. Awesome. That is so cool. If you see some chat jump up here like this one here, John, put your name after the end of it if you would when you post something for me. So I don't know why StreamYard works that way. It's John's a moderator in here or admin in here. So every time he types something, it puts my name on it. I don't whatever, for whatever reason. Hey, Vesta, how you doing? Vesta's here. Let's see. Yeah, we got to hear all about that, Eva, when you get back, man. You got to you have to share, take lots of pictures. I'm really interested to see what you got. Jan's here. Renee. Let's see. April and Penny are over on the Facebook side. Hi guys. Appreciate you. Linda's here. Wow. A lot of people showing up already. Really appreciate everyone coming by here tonight. Yeah, let us know what you're up to and where you're at, if you would, so we can kind of gather that up. I have a couple of video clips. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Expedition Bigfoot, Season 3, Episodes 11, 12, and 13. And I grabbed a couple video clips. I could have, honestly, this particular group of episodes, I could have grabbed several. But because it was just that filled with things to talk about. But I didn't, because I have to be very careful about how much of that I actually show, so I don't end up with copyright infringements. But they kind of let me get away with it. As long as I keep it under 9 seconds, they let me get away with it without getting too upset with me. So let's see here. Oh, keep it relevant. Oh, Jeff wants. She's talking to Jeff. All right. Hey, Robert's here too. I also wanted to kind of tell you guys about our Discord channel. I have a Discord channel. If you're not familiar with Discord, it is a place where you can type. It's a group area where you can kind of gather. You can type in there in the chat rooms. You can talk in the voice chat rooms. You can, if you have a phone, you can use your phone, your tablet, iPad, PC, laptop, doesn't matter. Download the app, click on the link that I have down below in the description of the show, and you can it'll take you right to my channel there. And we're in there all the time, just carrying on. Oh, I see that Tom put up a picture of a bear hiding behind a tree. That kind of looks familiar. I don't know. It's a bear standing up behind a tree right now. Okay, that's pretty cool. But we have a lot of fun in there, and we also have a lot of serious discussion about things as well. So if you want to join it, the link's down below. Hey, Robot, you can join that. And if you'd like to help support the show, because unfortunately this does cost money, I have the Patreon channel. It's Patreon Patreon channel. It's JFree906 over there. The party's just getting started. Hey, Robert. Okay. Or you can join that and become a patron, or you can get one of these nice mugs that we got here. You can get one of these again. Oh, look at there. Yeah, Mike's got his. But there is a link down below. You can click on it. It takes you right to the site where you can order one of these. They're $25 and they'll mail it to you, get it going, and all of that. But we really do appreciate everyone who has done that already, and or become a patron. We appreciate you all very, very much. Because unfortunately, like I said, it does cost, and it does help cover the cost. So, all right, with all of that said, let's dive into it. We got some good stuff for tonight. Again, the very first episode we're going to talk about tonight was number 11, episode 11, which was called The Chase is On. And they did. I mean, this episode had quite a few different things going on. One of the things that Russ, right off the bat, and I didn't have a picture of this, but right off the bat, at the end of episode 10, Russ had a thermal hit that he was watching on his camera at night. And then the next day, they went over to go check it out. And they went over there and they looked and they looked and they looked, and they came up zip. They didn't find any evidence of it whatsoever. But something that I saw him do that I thought was really cool, I didn't even know that they could do these, was that he got these little trackers. They call it a burr tracker. And he puts them on, branches or something that something would have to pass by, an animal would have to, or Bigfoot would have to go through, and it would get caught in their hair. And then they
GPS
would,
tracker. It's a
yeah.
GPS.
Have you seen these used before, either of you guys? I've never seen that.
I've never seen anything. Not that small. That's pretty small. And somehow, so it was tied to his phone.
Yeah.
So within 500 yards, it would show up on his phone and tell him what direction to go to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty slick technology. I've never seen anything quite that small.
Yeah, I haven't either. And yeah, it is a great idea, Jan. I was really, when I saw this, I thought, my goodness. And he put like 8 of them out. And now, I don't know. I would imagine that somehow or another, the app, I don't know if it keeps track of all 8 at the same time. I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't really checked into this. This is something I'm gonna have to investigate. But But that's a great little tool right there. Now he put them up high enough to where like a bear on all fours would not get it, and or a mountain lion or a cougar or a bobcat or a deer. Chances are they would not get caught on them. So yeah, so he put a couple of them out. There's a close up of one. You see how they're only about the size of what? It's about the size of a quarter. You see him holding the one. It's not very big. Maybe
it's not very big at all.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit bigger than a quarter, maybe, in size. So yeah, so he put these things out. And he put like 8 of them out in different places. And later on, he actually gets a hit. So we'll get back to that in just a few minutes. Another of the things that they find, and they find them quite often, is these tree structures. The tree structures, this one here, Mireya was not impressed with it at all. She saw this particular, the first one here, which I thought looked pretty cool, but she said it all looked natural to her on this one.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they challenge each other, because Ronnie, of course, right away was like, hey, Sasquatch structure. Well, Mireya's like, I'm not sure I buy it. So at least you see that they challenge each other and have a higher standard for, what they're going to accept, and whether or not that changes Ronnie's mind or not. It doesn't, it doesn't really matter. Mireya's saying that this, because there have been structures that Mireya has seen where she's like, yeah, I don't have an explanation for this. Even Russ said that too, is that there are some structures he scratches his head trying to figure out how it would have been done, or why it would have been done by a human out in the middle of nowhere, with almost zero chance of anybody ever finding it.
Exactly.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to, I kind of grouped these all together because I thought, well, they throughout the 3 episodes, 11, 12, and 13, they had several times that they came upon a structure. So I kind of grouped them together so we could kind of cover them all at once. The big point that, and I agree with Mireya here, but the big point she didn't like about this particular one is the trees were still have roots. They weren't
attached to the ground. Yep.
So if they were just fallen over, and you see quite a few of them are all laying the same direction. Even if you look over here, you see these over here in the background are still, there's some of those that are laying in that same direction.
Yep.
So, and a lot of debris on the ground. Look at all the stuff on the ground. That's pretty evident of some kind of a storm, straight line wind, something.
Yep.
Snow load, who knows? But something all kind of pushed them in this one direction, but they still had their roots in the ground as they were pushed over. So I agree with her on this one. Probably just a storm that caused this. Now, this is where you get into some interesting ones. I suppose you could say, yes, it is possible that this got bent over and hooked underneath in a storm or something, but I don't know. What do you make of that, guys?
Yeah, I think the ones that are the most impressive to me, and you kind of have to be careful, like Mireya is being, and not just assume every single thing is something that was done by a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. The structures that take multiple steps, or you have to bend one down before you place the next one and then release the one that you bent down, that type of stuff. Yeah. The odds of that happening randomly during a storm seems like it had to have been done by someone or something deliberately with intent. Now, was that a Sasquatch or a human or a group of kids out in the wild? Who knows? But it's worth paying some attention to. And then some of those structures, you start seeing logs or trees, parts of trees that are probably too big for just the average man to be able to pick up and move. Yeah. Those get even more interesting. And then like the one that Russ kind of scratched his head on, it was so tall and so big and there was nothing disturbed. They would have had to have long poles or, a cherry picker, or, something that they were able to get all of those things up in the tree way up high without disturbing any single, moss or little branch.
Scrubbing, climbing the tree to get it up there. There's no climb marks or scrape marks on the tree going up, like this tree here.
Yeah.
Somebody asked the question, is it tied to the other tree? That was Jan. Looks like a trap. It looks like it's bent around right here and then hooked underneath this branch that's broken off on this pine right here, or whatever this tree is. I think it's some sort of a pine, but it's bent around and hooked underneath this. Now, could that happen in a storm? Yeah, it could.
Maybe.
This one's broke off.
Maybe.
Maybe. You see, this one's broken off over here.
Yep.
And if you look over here on this side, you've got these two right here that are broken off. You know, I don't know.
How high is that? How high is that off the ground?
That one, it was, I don't know. It was pretty high. It was definitely above their heads because they walked up to it and were looking up at it. But I don't know for sure just how high up. But it was, I would say, probably 7 feet.
It reminds me of a spring snare of some type.
Oh,
You know, maybe something was attached to it and it's a hairline, hair trigger snare of some type. I mean, it looks like it's definitely been intentionally bent. For what purpose, we don't know.
Yeah. Christy brought up a point here about the spokes. You know, like these all broke off. It looks like spokes on this tree here. All these broken pieces. And it does. It looks like spokes on a wheel. And this one over here is done the same way.
Yeah.
Why? You know, I don't know. And the thing of it is, in any of these points that I'm making here, you can't say, "Oh, Bigfoot did that."
No,
I'm not, and that's not what we're trying to say here, because I'm still a skeptic on Bigfoot to begin with. But it's certainly odd. A human could have done it, but yeah,
Sure.
it's certainly odd.
So it's tucked underneath the branch, right, Jeff? Is that what I'm saying?
It's bent around and tucked underneath this one right here. You can see where it's tucked underneath
for a purpose.
And it's just on the edge. So I mean,
edge.
It could come loose like a hair trigger, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, all broken at the same lengths. Yeah, they are. Yeah, pretty much all the same lengths all the way around. I don't know. Pretty strange. All except for this one right here. But yeah, I don't know. Just that was kind of neat. And then this, I think this was another one. And I don't believe, let's see. No, it's not that one. So this was another one they came across. And I think Mireya liked this one a little bit better simply because the sticks all were broken off. They were not roots. They still didn't have their roots. So that was pretty neat one there. But again, what does it mean? Even if it is some sort of a tree structure, what the heck is it supposed to mean? It's not a shelter. It doesn't qualify, in my opinion, to be a shelter. So what's its purpose? Some sort of a symbol or a sign? You know, making a sign in the woods. Go this way.
If you add a tarp around the whole thing.
If you had a tarp on, absolutely.
Then you have like a teepee structure. So I'm not ruling that out. Now, if it's just standing like that with no human activity or no signs of human activity, different story.
Right.
You would have to do a full investigation of the ground, what's around, saw marks, anything like that. Those natural broken structures.
Yep.
Unknown.
Yeah. Robot's got a question for you already there, Mike. Are Bigfoot territorial? Are these tree symbols a mark of their?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the jury is still out on what the tree structures, and you have ones like that where it's big logs. You have smaller ones that are almost woven. The saplings are woven together, and then you have nests. So they're all a little bit different. Territorial, I don't whether they're territorial against us. I mean, that's what the majority of the encounters that I listen to is they want people, humans, out of their territory now. And they will go to great lengths to get you out and scare you to get you to go. Are they territorial to each other? All I can say is it's clear that they stay in family groups. Even though many encounters or pictures are of one, there's rarely one. There's usually more than one. Yeah. And it's the ones that you can't see, as they say, that you need to probably worry about. So they're definitely in family groups. Does that mean that they're territorial to some extent? I don't know, between one another. They're definitely territorial against us, hunters, fishermen. Those are a lot of those encounters that I'm listening to. Is they're just out in the woods doing their thing, and Next thing you know, stuff starts getting thrown at them and can go
They
downhill
had
from
that
there.
happen a lot during these episodes. This whole
Yeah.
time in the
Right.
California mountains, they had a lot of things thrown at them. Actually, they
Yep.
did over when they were in the peninsula as well.
Yep.
They're always getting things thrown at them. And we talked about that stick last week.
Yeah.
That
The heat signature.
Ronnie got thrown at him, that it was still lit up. I mean, it was lit up from the heat. Something was holding on to it and really heated that thing up before it was thrown.
Yep.
Okay. I what do you make of that? I don't know. That was Penny said signs for a Bigfoot. Yeah, I think so, Penny, in some way, because they don't
mean
really
something to
qualify
them.
to be anything else. Yeah.
Right. It may mean something to them, but to us, we don't quite understand.
Yeah. Here's another one. This is one that they passed by, or they almost passed by at nighttime. They didn't even. This is the also. They saw this and this very well. This branch was broken off. This one up here, and it's hooked on this tree over here, and it's hooked on a tree over there, and then you've got these two that are leaning up against it. They went back the next day. They left it alone. They went back the next day to get another look at it, and you see there's a piece, another tree here that's leaning up against that one where it's hooked right here. Now, the interesting thing, and Mireya was kind of like, she wasn't sold just yet until she went around to the other side and she was checking out this one right here that has been broken off and kind of sharply broken off on this end right here. It's kind of got a sharp point on it. The other end, she said, was jabbed into the ground quite a ways down, very firmly.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't fall that way. And that's what she had said on the show, that she didn't think it fell that way. It looked like something had jammed it down in there so that it would remain up against this piece here. Again.
Yep.
And Ronnie measured that. What did he say? 112 inches?
I think that was right.
On the low end.
Yep.
Because it was a little higher on one end.
Don't know.
I don't know. What do you make of that? I mean, again, different, and they're completely different. It doesn't look like the other TP style structures that they have on the other ones.
Yeah. And they may have different purposes. We've seen some that look like they were deliberately made to slow down game, like deer.
Yep.
As deer approach it, they'd have to stop momentarily. And there's been accounts of them, they're ambush hunters. So that would make sense. I mean, so they may have different purposes, and we're seeing different versions and trying to assign, specific things. Yeah. We just don't know.
We just don't know. Exactly. And this may have been something that was being used at one point for something, and then part of it's been knocked over, that it just collapsed on its own, whatever. And these other ones that are laying over here to the side, maybe they just wind finally pushed them over. We don't know how long it's even been there. But that's a little over 9 feet in the air. So, I mean, I can't reach 9 feet. I'm 6 foot tall. I can reach about 8 if I get on my tippy toes. That's about it. So you have, for me at my size, and I'm pretty average size, I think between 5'8" and 6'2", I would have to shinny up that tree to get that up there, or use another branch with a hook, something on it to get it up to that height. I mean, I don't know. And like Mireya said, why would you, if it was a human, she goes, I can't rule out a human did this, but why would a human do this?
Right.
Because they almost walked right by it and didn't even see it. So why would a human do that? I don't know. Yeah, pretty interesting. And then there's this one. This is the one that they found. Russ found.
Yeah. Right.
With Zach. The next one of the nights they were going along, they found this one, and these branches are all bent over and woven into each other, and make this little arch right here. And you see the cameras have, Zach. I don't know if that was Zach. They usually put his name here, but they just said, "This is weird, dude."
Yeah, and Russ said, "I'm not superstitious, but I'm not going in there.
Not going in.
Not going under that thing."
Yeah, he was pointing out right here.
Clearly woven. Clearly woven.
These branches are twisted around right here, and woven into each other to hold it together. Why? What does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, each one of those may have a different purpose. We don't know.
I'm sure they do. It makes sense that they would be a Bigfoot wedding arch. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, April. Yeah, I kind of thought that too. You know, I looked at it. I was kind of like, yeah, it kind of looks like a wedding arch right there. Yeah, but a pretty small one. I mean, you'd have to, Russ would have had to bend over, and Russ and I are about the same height. He'd have to bend over to walk under that, but he wasn't going to. I thought that was hilarious when a Bigfoot woman made it. Yeah, Deanna, that's what Deanna says. Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Pretty weird.
Yep.
Interesting things here. Let's see. I think that was it. Yeah, that was it on the structures. That was most of them that they saw while they were out there. And again, you just can't say for sure if a human did not make it. Some of them look like they might be in the natural side. It's when you see them all, and we've seen this many times, where they make the TP shape and all the branches are lined up around and they all come to a center point. All the broken pieces.
Yep.
That's not natural fall. It just isn't. And when they're broken off, the root's still in them, and they're leaning over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can buy that from a storm, but yeah.
Okay, when they're in that shape, Jeff, what is it? What's its purpose, in your opinion?
I would say it's a marker, and it could be something to do, because you see some of them like that with the sticks across, making like an A pattern.
Correct.
And then you see some that are just like that without the ones going across. So maybe it's a symbol of a tribe or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm
you see A and you see X.
Yes. Yeah, A and X. Yeah.
And maybe that's purely random. I don't know, but that seems like if it's a taller structure, it's like that. The teepees, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting, very, very interesting. But yeah, so possibly, I don't know. The snow would have to be very packed to be able to stand on top of it. Ask Mike about that, because he's where the snow is like 4 feet deep.
We've got snow 2 stories tall here.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Jeff, can we look at that picture again? The one you just had up there? Yeah. And it would really, for me, it would depend on, if the ground was, cleaned off and, there was a place for a site to use as a campsite or something like that. And that could be random.
Right.
If the floor of the forest is cleared off, and there's other signs there. Other than that could be just, I mean, it looks like something, but is that us really? I mean, we call it matrixing sometimes. Is that us trying to look for structure where it just might be natural?
Very well could be.
I can't rule that out.
Yeah, that's something that I'm. When you were just saying that too, I would do that if I'm out in the woods, and I've got to find shelter for the night, and if I don't have a saw, but I have a blanket or some kind of a cover, I would break off branches. I would make a teepee shape. I would use that cover to put over top of it.
Correct.
Do my shelter for the night. The next day, take that cover off and evacuate the area and leave the next day. So there would be no evidence left behind of me being there, except for maybe a few footprints or,
and
whatever.
You're clearing off the area where you're going to sleep.
Yeah. And I would definitely do that, because I don't want to lay on sticks and branches and rocks or whatever. I would have made a little area to lay under it. So yes, that makes total sense. And a human could very well have done any of these. So that doesn't say that it was a Bigfoot porta potty. Oh, Jan, you're such a hoot. Bigfoot porta potty. Yeah, they put a little cover over there so they can do their thing. So yeah. All right. So tree structures, again, an interesting thing, but not proof of a Bigfoot. All right. They talked to this gentleman here, and this is Bruce Starr. They were talking to him about, he brought up the point of, he's a native, a witness also, and he's had an experience. He was talking about that a little bit after he got done talking about orbs and lights in the woods. And he said growing up, he was always taught, don't follow them. when you see an orb or a light in the woods, in the forest, do not go after it. Don't follow it. Don't go try to see what it is. Because, and he was told that if you do that, they're trying to lead you into danger, to lead you to some sort of trouble, to entice you with the light. So don't ever follow the light. Then he talked about his Bigfoot experience a little bit and discussed that. Now, right off the bat, Bryce had taken that whole light thing and put it together with what Russ had seen. Remember when we talked about this last week, when Russ went through that train tunnel and then he found that little, I call it a drain tunnel that went off to the side of it in a perpendicular, and it went off to the side as a drain hole, and he went through there. He had to bend over and go through there. When he got to the end, he looked out and he saw a light, which would have been on a hillside across the valley from where he was. It was a drop off where he was. If he would have stepped on the way out there, he would have fallen and possibly died, because he said it was a long drop straight down. But he saw that light out there, and he was looking at the light, and he got closer and closer and went, "Oh my gosh, I could have fallen right here." Does that wrap with what Bruce here said? Possibly.
Yep.
But have either of you had the experience with lights in the forest when there's no reason for that light to be there?
Nope.
I have.
No, but the guidance that he gave is very common.
Mm-hmm.
That is very common. Don't follow the whistle. Don't follow the light. Don't chase a baby's crying sound, because you might not come back. That's very common amongst the Native Americans, First Nations people.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to come back to those lights here in just a little bit, because they do get very interesting later in the episodes that we're talking about tonight. So we'll come back to that. But remember what he had said there about leading you to danger. So that's an important thing to remember. Remember the trackers, the burr trackers that Russ put out? Well, he has one missing. He gets a hit on his phone that one is on the move. And so they go out and they look, and they find one is missing from here. And then I guess he goes, they go looking for it, and he's got and it's kind of neat on his phone. You can see on his phone, there's like a circle and a line, and he can go around and it shows which direction to go. I love these things. I got to figure out what he had and look into this. But so they go around looking, and then it stops. They lose it. And then later on, beep, 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 it tells them on his phone, oh, it's found again. And they go look, and then it stops.
Yep. Yeah, they actually camp on the trail where they put that. So hoping that it would come back on that same trail.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was one of the questions that I asked Russ when we were interviewing him, is who's faster in the woods than Russ Acord? I mean, he's grown up in the woods in Montana.
Yeah.
Hunted much of his life. He's a survivalist. Who can move faster than he can in the woods?
I don't know.
It just doesn't, to me, that seems like it would be a very, very difficult thing for someone to hoax or fake. So could have been an animal of some kind. I mean, to me, that narrows it down to it being probably an animal of some kind that's able to navigate the woods a lot faster than he was, because he said it was getting frustrating. It was toying with him.
Yeah.
It'd get close enough for them to recognize that it was nearby and go after it, and they'd lose it, and then it'd be gone. And with very little effort, it was able to lose him.
Yeah.
So
with very little effort, and they couldn't. And he's even using I think at some point he was even using a thermal to try to look ahead, and still couldn't get anything. But yet it's picking up on its tracker on his phone. And somebody asked the question, how high were they? Mora, he was putting them up, about 4 feet or 5 feet high off the ground, high enough to where an animal that's on all fours would not, chances are would not pick it up. It would not catch on their hair like a bear or a deer or something like that. It was up high enough to where it should clear underneath them or over top of the animal as it went through. A bear or bobcat or anything like that shouldn't have picked it up. So Here's a picture of what I was just talking about of his tracker, and showing him right there that it's straight ahead in the direction that his phone is pointing, and it says it's 100 feet away. So he goes barreling into the woods after it, and he was hurrying, and he was hurrying to a point where Zach is like, Russ, I can't see. He's trying to follow Russ. Poor Zach.
Poor
I mean,
Zach. That guy.
Russ just takes off, and he's carrying a camera. It's late at night.
He needs a tracker on Russ.
Yeah, yes, he does. He needs a tracker on Russ, but he's trying to run through the woods with a camera, trying to follow Russ. Yet he's like, Russ, I can't see where I'm going. And then they finally get to a point where they find it. And this was right by their camp, if I remember right. Or it was very close to where they were. And they find it laying on the ground. They actually come to, and he finally gets to a point. He goes, it's right here. And they're looking around on the ground, and there it is laying on the ground with hair on it.
Yep.
So you think about this. And this is what here's how my mind was working when this was happening, is that it got picked up, and then later on something knew that it was there and was kind of toying with them about it and coming close and then running off, coming close, running off, and then came back, got them all excited, and knew it was, and dropped it. Was probably carrying it around. I don't know. And I'm going down the Bigfoot line again, or a person, and dropped it right there. And just toying with them, saying, "Ha ha, you thought you got me, didn't you?" I don't know. That's where my mind went. I don't know.
They do collect that hair, though.
Yeah. He puts it in a bag, and he puts it in a bag, in a Ziploc baggie or whatever.
Yep.
And to go and have it analyzed, and we don't know yet about the analysis of it, but he did do that. Somebody said maybe an owl. Oh. Oh, I didn't think about that.
There's no hair on it now. It would be feathers.
Right. Yeah. And it definitely looks like there's hair on it. That's what he said too when he picked it up. He said
it does look like there's something on it.
Yeah. So, yeah, this black right here, you can see all that. It looks like hair.
So was it held, or was it on a animal and fell off? That's the question.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And again, I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot, but it sure seems like, because as the activity went on that night, it kept coming close to them and then running away. Come close to them and then running away. As soon as he would barrel through the woods after it, it would get too far away and he would lose the signal again. And then all of a sudden they get the signal. Good. They get closer and closer. We got him. And then they find it laying on the ground. So why did it keep coming back to where they were?
Right. Well, and remember what Russ said, the way that it was left, so it toyed with them, got them all excited, and then it dropped it someplace where tactically it put him in a very, very compromised position. Mm-hmm. And he knew it. As soon as he saw it, he realized it was a trap. It could have been a trap. I mean, it was a setup. And if it had wanted, maybe it was making a point of, you think you're good in the woods. I'll show you good in the woods.
Yeah, that's what I mean? I was thinking, yeah.
Right. He was really, I think he was frustrated, not just with how quickly it was able to outpace him, but frustrated with himself for not recognizing that
possible trap.
Right. That he was being lured into a trap. I mean, it was no different than a fishing lure. It's what you do with fish.
Yes.
And then set the hook. Great. When you finally get him to come get it, tease him a few times, and he fell for it. And I think he knew.
Follow through with that logic, though. If it's a trap, then sure. the question is, was it intentionally dropped like that?
Right.
Okay. And
given that location, he kind of felt like it had been.
Okay. And then for there to be hair on it, like I'm thinking about our own physiology, right?
Yeah. Right.
Have hair on it, that means it was holding it in its hand, palm, whatever it has, and that sample would have to come from that area of which it was being held. Right. It's not like it's plucking off the side of a creature and then dropping. I mean, that could be it. But if it knew it was there and then intentionally picked it up, then whatever that is from the palm hand area. Right. If we're using that logic. Otherwise, it would have been plucked off the side of it. But if it's intentional, then you have to, where does that hair come from off the creature?
Yep.
I'm asking. I mean,
yeah, I don't know that, but you're right. You got to think, you got to break it down in that way. Yeah, for sure.
you have to break it down in that way, and then where would that come off the creature? I mean, off the side, and the creature's just running back and forth. No, if you're intentionally holding it and then intentionally drop it with the hair and the sticky part up, then that had to come off the portion of the body that was holding it. And as you know, the only creature that would have something like that would be, a possible Sasquatch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying the logic would be that.
Right. So they have to get that hair tested. And using the guide that you now have, Mike, from Jeff Meldrum.
That's right.
Talks about the hair.
There's a section right there.
Yeah, see? It talks
about the medulla and what it should look like under a microscope. It's fantastic.
I know, right? Eva was telling a pretty good story here about something about one of the most famous stories about Albert Hoffman.
He was kidnapped
to a cave with a family group, and he escaped after a few days. According to the story, pretty well. He had some snuff, and the male was interested in it and took a big taste and ran off because it tasted horrible, and that's how Albert got away while the creatures ran off. I did not know that story.
Yeah, that happened in 1924, and he didn't tell it until like 25 years later or so. And again, long before Patterson-Gimlin, long before a lot of this was more popular. Interesting. It was a very interesting case.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out now. I'm gonna have to go look for that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, that's what she's saying here. You can Google the Albert Ostman Bigfoot story for more info. Thank you, Eva. That's really cool. I did not know about that one. See, I'm learning stuff. That's why I love you guys. You guys, John, you and Mike, and all the people watching. That's why I'm doing this podcast about this, and because I'm using this as my way to research this phenomenon, because to me it's still a phenomenon. I don't know. So, all right. So the tracker ends up being pretty good stuff. And then they split up a little bit. Mireya and Ronnie are often together, working together. And like Mike was saying earlier, I love how they, oh, it's a Bigfoot. Oh, now just wait a minute. How they kind of go through all that. They kind of split up. Ronnie decides to go and meditate, which I thought was kind of interesting. So he goes to sit down, and he was telling Mireya about it. And she was kind of like, at first, she was kind of like rolling her eyes a little bit.
She did. She did.
You're going to meditate?
Yeah.
And finally she was like, well, different ways of doing things. Maybe we should look at different ways.
She kept an open mind. Yep. That's good.
Mind. Yes. Which a good scientist will always do.
Jane Goodall taught her well.
Yes, she did. So he decided to go and meditate for a little bit. And then he, Mireya, when she was by herself, she ends up going along, and then she ends up seeing an orb in the woods.
Yep. An orange orb.
An orange orb. And I did get a little snapshot of it there. I think I got two. And she said, what is going on right now? Because she was checking this thing out, and it was low enough in the tree line that it was not above the trees as far as she could tell. We talked about the one they saw last week, the same thing. It seemed like it was low enough to where it wouldn't be up in the now. At nighttime, it's hard to discern that. Sometimes it could be on a hillside across and whatever. But she was pretty well convinced, pretty much knowing where she was, that orb should not be there. And if it was a flashlight, it would have been white. It wouldn't have been orange, right? So that was interesting.
The interesting part to me is the consistency of the colors. There's really only two that you hear very much of. It's either that orangish amber color, kind of like an old flashlight with an incandescent bulb, that amber kind of color, or a blue-white light, and it's almost always those two, and it's always at least below tree top level.
Yep.
If not, human height level.
Right.
Very consistent.
Right. And then Ronnie, he went out and he sat there and meditated for a little while. Yeah, I've heard of the orange orb is what is evil. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Could be right.
Yeah. He went out to meditate, and then he finally starts to get weird feelings. So he gets up and he goes around, and then he started getting things thrown at him. So that's what happened to him. Ronnie ends up getting things thrown at him. Mireya sees an orb. Russ is off looking for that tracker the same night. They are all having some crazy stuff going on.
The chase is on.
Chase is on, which is what the name of that episode.
Right. That was a good name.
It was a great name. Now we kind of jump over to episode number 12, which was called Man Down. It was a great name also. We'll get to that in a little bit. But right after all this stuff is happening, Mireya and Ronnie get back together, and right off the bat, helicopter shows up. And there's a better picture of it. You can see that that's with a thermal, and you can see the heat signature, but you can see that it's definitely not an orb, and they could hear it, and they knew it was a helicopter. But they're like, okay, this is not the first time that helicopters have been flying over top of them, like looking to see what the heck they're doing. So, I mean,
very strange.
It is. It's very strange.
Or very, very coincidental.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, and at the same time, I wrote down here that Bryce was at the command center the same night. He's at their command center, and he's in there doing his thing, looking at all the videos and analyzing things and whatnot. And then they lose power. Now, might have been a simple reason why they lost power, but they lost power. They never did explain why. But then he goes out to see if he could figure out what's going on, and he goes to one of his trail cams that's outside. He's got a couple set up outside. He wanted to see what was going on. He goes out to the trail cam, and it's giving him an error message. So he was not able to get anything from it. I got just an error message. So he decides, and I did not know they made one of these, but he decides to put up a trail cam in a Faraday box.
Yep.
Now, explain what you guys both probably know what a Faraday cage is, but go ahead if you would. Kind of
So essentially, it prevents any electromagnetic signature escape the box. It prevents any signals of any kind, and since the trail cam, all it needs to do is see movement to be able to take a picture. It doesn't affect its ability in any way, shape, or form. And since there's definitely there's some theories out there that Sasquatch is sensitive to electronic devices of some kind, those electronic signals, or something along those lines. That was pretty interesting to see that they had that and that they were using those. That lends credence to that theory that they suspect that may be the case. So let's try a Faraday cage and put the camera in it. It may still be able to see the infrared from the camera, but at least it's not able to sense. There's no way it could sense that any electronic signal would be giving off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because Ronnie was on. He was on a Zoom, it was kind of like a podcast, doing it for a library system the other night, and it's Tuesday night, and so we got a chance to watch some of that. And I asked him that question about whether or not he was, in his opinion, if Bigfoots, if they exist, could see infrared light. And he said, he thinks that yes, they can. So that kind of blows out, the idea behind using a I've got my night vision, and we were talking about my night vision camera or my binoculars that do record. And I was amazed. I took it with me when I went out to Enchanted Rock. I took it with me, and I was using it out there a little bit, looking around, and it works very well. I can't wait to use this thing on an investigation. I'm really hyped about that because it wasn't a very expensive one, and it seems to work very well, and it does record video. Nice. So I can't wait. But I was watching, actually, when we came off the Enchanted Rock, I got back to the truck in the parking lot. That's when I got it out because the night had fallen. Stars were beautiful, and I got it out, and I was actually watching people that were walking a good, in some cases, some of them I was watching them walk where they were almost about 100 yards away from me, and I could still see them very
Nice.
clearly in the thing walking away.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, I was impressed. I can't wait to use it in the field. But it does emit infrared light, like an
Sure.
infrared flashlight. So it's if I'm out doing a Bigfoot investigation and there's one around, if he can see it, he's not going to, and we'll get to that a little bit later too, that maybe they've got great night vision, I think, if they exist. We'll get to that a little later because there's a little incident that comes up with that. So,
Jeff,
okay,
Jeff,
go ahead.
were they able to capture any good audio of the helicopter?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did not record it, but yes,
Okay.
you can hear
Can that be analyzed? Because every plane
Yeah.
helicopter gives off a certain signature or sound, much like animals. And so,
Right.
you can tell the difference between planes, for instance. I live very close to an airport. So, you can tell what's flying over, just because of the way it sounds.
Mhm.
So you probably could identify, and Jan had a point, whether that was
Yeah.
military or
Right.
commercial or private, what
Or
type
police.
of, or
Yeah.
police,
Right.
I'd be curious to know if it was military for obvious reasons,
Right.
Really, really big helicopters, maybe.
Yeah,
Huge
big
helicopter,
helicopter,
yeah.
big seats.
Yeah. But I guarantee if we maybe we'll do that for
That's
Mike. Mike
interesting.
might be
Yeah.
able to. I would
Yeah.
love to know,
Yep.
isolate that sound and try to see if we can identify that. I'm sure we can.
Sure.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be a good, and it's hard to say. This one did not look like a big helicopter. It seemed, and I watched the video, of course, watching it on the show. Excuse me, and it did not seem like a big helicopter. It was like more of the one you'd see on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Cameron's helicopters, about
Yeah.
that size, is what I gathered when I looked at this. That's what I was thinking. That it was.
There's
about
been
the
other
size.
times they've had military helicopters fly
Yeah,
over, though.
yeah.
And
So
that's
they're
what I'm trying to
clearly
do.
sensitive to it.
Oh yeah, sure.
And there would be a log of that, of course. That might
Or
be
is there?
or not, depending on where the helicopter originated.
This is when you would
Yeah.
want to have Eric Bard's tracking.
ADSB, yeah.
Yes.
Read my mind.
So
But
you
that's
can get the signature of what it was.
The ADSB though isn't required. It's
It's certain height too.
advised that
Right.
you do that, but like Cameron doesn't transmit
Right.
when he's flying to the ranch. Military typically doesn't. Sometimes they do, but they don't usually. So
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah,
if it's not
very
transmitting, you would know it's military then, or it was off the books,
or somebody trying to be private about
or
hiding,
someone trying to be private about it. But
hiding
you
their
could,
location.
you could rule out quite a bit if it's
Right.
not emitting.
Just by
as much
that.
as
True.
just,
Yeah.
just by that.
Exactly. That next day after they saw the orb, Ronnie and Mireya get together and they head out to go see where the orb area was, or look in the area where she saw the orb to try to get some kind of evidence in the daytime. While they're out there, and I thought this was a fantastic idea, and I wish they would put these up to where we could watch them. They put up a camera that also has infrared and is 24/7 transmitting back, using cell phones. I'm not sure if it was using cell phone transmission or what,
Must be.
signal it's using. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's probably a cell phone signal of some sort. So they set this camera up, which I thought was really cool. And then Ronnie found those tree structures with the bent trees. Mireya found a bedded area, but again, she thought it was just regular animals, just deer or whatever, bedding down in a certain spot. And then they get the capture. Before that happened, this is where the man down came.
Yeah.
Russ got a signal. Was it the I forgot what stirred him.
It wasn't the tracker. He heard something.
Yeah. He heard something and he got up and he was trying to, and he told Zach, just stay there. I'm going to go out and check this out, and just stay there. And Zach was kind of like, oh yeah, just go ahead and go. He was asleep, woke him up. So Russ goes running off to go check this out. He grabs the camera and he takes off. And that's one of their trail video cameras that's actually watching him right there. where they got the footage. So he goes off to check this out. Actually, he goes off one way. He comes back, and Zach is gone. Zach gets up, and for whatever reason, and Zach didn't look like he was completely coherent.
No.
I mean, he kind of got up and he kind of wandered off. I mean, it's like, and that was actually, this picture is actually Zach, because Russ comes back and he was like, he's gone. He went looking in the direction that he went, thinking he went to follow him. He wasn't there. He came back and he checked the trail cam and saw that Zach went off this direction, going off this way. So that's when he came upon him, and you saw this clip come up. Zach has fallen into a 15-foot deep rocky enclosure several hundred yards from camp. What the heck happened to him?
It's almost like he was sleepwalking. Like you said, he didn't look coherent completely.
He didn't. When he got up, he didn't look like he was completely all together at that moment. I mean, I don't know. And he just
wasn't fully awake or something.
Yeah, and he wandered off. I think he actually went to relieve himself.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and then why did he end up several hundred yards from the camp? Did he get lost, or I don't know? But that's where the man down came, because he fell into this enclosure of some sort. He fell into it, and remarkably, he wasn't hurt in any way. I don't know, but he had no way of seeing where he. I don't think he even took a flashlight with him. I don't know. It was odd, to say the least. Let's see if I can get to. One of the points here, and we'll get back to that camera here in just a little bit. This is one of those thermal signatures that they picked up. This one really blew my mind.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple different occasions where they've come across one like this. This particular thing, whatever it is, kept leaning out and looking back towards them, and then kind of leaned back. But a little bit of it was always showing, but it would lean. You could see a little bit more of it, like there. I think that was about the most you could see at any point, and then it would kind of go back, and you could just see just a little sliver of it. And it did this several times. And it looked like something standing. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah,
like peekaboo. Like it was.
Yeah, they also smelled something musky.
Yes.
They smelled something first, and then they started looking around with the thermal camera, and they saw that peeker, tree peeker, as they call them.
Yeah, a tree peeker. That's where we come upon the thing saying that they can see so well at night. Now, a thermal imaging camera does not put out a light.
Right.
Not like an IR does.
Correct.
It's just simply capturing what's out there, and it's disseminating between the different heat signatures that it's finding. Obviously, the darker blues are cold, lighter blues are not so cold, and then you got your oranges and reds that are hot, or very warm. And whatever this is showing up. Oh, that mouse, I hate that. Sorry. This thing is showing up, and it was coming out, going back, coming out, going back. And then they turned on their flashlight. One of them did. I think it was Ronnie. And they see this in the same area where they saw the peeker, because they're still looking in that same direction. And this one orb that they see turns into two. Now, that was a bad picture of it there, because it was actually very well defined two at one point. I was trying to capture this so I could show you guys, and I didn't get a very good capture of it. But there was actually two very bright. Now, that's where Mireya talked about eye shine. Now, did you catch that on that when she was describing animals and how that works?
Yeah. Yeah, she kind of explained what causes eye shine, and why nocturnal animals have it. It helps them see in the dark, essentially. But yeah, there were two very distinct red eyes, and it was up a ways too.
So Jeff, does the height of the red eyes match the height of the creature or whatever it was that was looking and not? Is that kind of relative? You know what I'm saying?
Is it really say?
Yeah, they really didn't get into this very much. I was surprised they didn't do more with that.
You could determine how high off the ground the creature was when it was looking around. And you can also determine within, relatively inches or feet, how high those eyes are off the ground as well. And then you can compare the two to see if there's a correlation.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be that hard to do. So
No.
was it ever revealed? I don't think it was revealed. I don't think they talked
No,
about
no,
it.
I don't remember them actually going and
But they
finding
could
out
do that.
how high it was. Yeah.
They could do the science because where that branch is, you can certainly
Yes.
find out how high those supposed eyes are. And
Right.
same thing with the whatever was looking, or whatever the creature was that was looking around. You can determine how high that was.
Yep.
And if they correlate, then you might have something.
Yeah. The one thing you look for too is the blink.
Yep.
And you can certainly, if you're watching it, I've seen this many times, but you look for the blink. That's where you can discern whether or not they're orbs that were one and split into two, or an orb. You watch for that blink, because eventually the animal is going to blink. If it's an animal, eventually it might take a while, but they can see very well at night. And that's where they were talking about nocturnal animals having it, and humans do not. They don't have that kind of eye shine like that. We'll see red eye when they take a photograph. That's a different whole thing there.
Yeah.
This is a different animal altogether. So, and I thought at first when I zoomed in, I thought, oh, it's a deer, and you can see it. No, it's not. That's not part of it. Whatever that is not an animal right here, this part.
Right.
So I don't know, man. That's now tell me, if you're in the woods and you know that there's a possibility of bears and mountain lions and all these kinds of animals around, and you saw something like that looking at you, I mean, I'd be kind of
Yep. And that's not that far away.
And it's not very far away.
No. They were cool cookies, though. I don't know.
They kept their composure. Of course, you're talking about having, 2 camera people and 2,
Right.
And then both of them there. So there's 4 of them all together. That gives you bravery, when you got so many people around. But anyway, but yeah, that shot, right there of that thing, whatever it was. And then it finally went back behind, and then it was gone completely. They lost it. It was completely gone.
Yeah.
And they didn't see it walking off through the woods or anything like that. It was just gone. Again, one of those situations where did it go?
Right.
They should have seen it moving through the woods between trees and all that, but they didn't. Have no idea. So,
well, Jeff, I'm gonna have to rule out bear and other creatures. Usually, one would have a bear box, up in the tree. But bears can smell your food up from a mile away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if it was any sort of creature that was hungry, they would have advanced on the camp, no matter what. Because bears will not be stopped. If they're hungry, they're going to get to you.
They're going to
your
get
food.
to the food they smell. Yes,
correct. So I got to rule out any larger creature because they're going to take advantage of the food or what they see as a potential food source. So it was something that wasn't interested in food necessarily, right? Yeah. And there's
Robot's got a good point there too. I don't know what animals have red eye shine, because owls typically have orange or amber. So I don't know what. It'd be interesting to do a little bit of research on that.
Yeah, to find out what has that red like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, good point, Robot. Thanks. So yeah, I like what Vesta said there. Yeah, that's a hard nope. I'd turn my butt around and be gone. I'd be getting gone. Okay, so moving along again with seeing eyes in the woods like that staring at you after you saw a thermal hit of something that looks like a humanoid type figure looking at peekabooing around a tree. Yeah, I don't know. That's, again, is it proof of Bigfoot? No, but it's not a human because humans don't have eye shine. So what the heck is it? Is it an alien?
Jeff, rabbits and pikas have red eye shine.
Oh, you looked it up already.
Yeah, I've already looked it up.
Rabbits and what?
But
pikas is a small rodent, not what we're seeing.
Yeah, and these eyes were front facing, so that's a predator.
Yeah, blue eye shine is seen in mammals, including horses. Foxes and domestics also have green eye shine. So there's a whole eye shine. I mean, you can actually look it up, but nothing is listed that would be that far off the ground with a red eye shine. Yeah. So that's kind of a mystery.
possum could be up high. Yeah,
Yep.
interesting.
Coyotes.
Yeah.
A possum, baby, a possum.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. See, that's what I love about the chat. Everybody's coming up with good stuff, and you too. You're finding. I like how you Google stuff while we're talking about it. That's
Oh yeah,
perfect.
absolutely.
All right. So next, we go back to that 24/7 camera that was mounted on the side of the tree that we showed earlier, and Bryce gets a hit on it, and so he's checking it out, and he goes, "Oh, it's a family of deer." Um, so he's watching those, and he thought, "Yeah, this camera's working really well. It's looking in this little spot here." Now take a good look at this area while in the daytime, and notice the nice clearing. They set this up in such a way that it has a nice clearing right there. So the trees are what would you say? Is that 30 yards away? The trees from the stand somewhere? I'm a bad judge of distance, but I'd say probably about
Yeah,
30 yards.
at least.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, at least. Um, and I don't know if it's my next picture. Yes, it is. He gets another signal and he gets another alert and he goes back. This is later on that night and he sees a deer. Now, I didn't get a shot of that, but he actually sees a deer standing there. But the deer seemed very alert about something. It was head was up straight. It was looking off in a certain direction, and it was watching something. It didn't take flight yet, but it was certainly alerted that something was around. Okay, he goes, "Oh, it's a deer," and then while he's watching the deer, bloop, bloop, he gets another alert. So he brings up, and he has to download what it recorded because it goes off with motion. I guess it's a motion detection one. So he downloads what it picked up, and he sees this. Now, I got a little video of this also because this is a very odd light. I don't know what else to call it at this point besides a light.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And when we watch the little video clip I have of it, it gets even more interesting. So, yeah, there's another shot of it. And again, you don't really, you see some cloudiness over here on the back side of it. And there's a little zoom in. This right here, I don't know. Pretty odd. But it's the shape that it gets me. It's not a nice, perfectly round orb.
Nope.
And as I said, we'll get to the point where we get a little closer look at it and on the video, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Bob Gimlin. Everybody that's into Bigfoot has probably heard of the Patterson-Gimlin film that they took. And I know that Mike is a absolute source of information when it comes to this. So we'll talk about it a little bit, but we might do a special show. We were talking about this earlier. Mike, John, and I were talking about this earlier, maybe doing a special show because we could do an hour just on the video alone or the film. I call it a film. It's not a video.
Yeah.
Film.
Right.
So we could do an hour show just on it alone, but take us through this just a little bit, Mike.
Sure. So October 20th, 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were out looking for Bigfoot. There'd been some activity in the area that they were aware of. And this was like midday. They're on horseback. So keep in mind, 1967, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have thermal cameras. They didn't have infrared. They just had their horse gear and their camping gear. And this camera, which this was not just a standard home camera. This was a camera that was so expensive that Roger Patterson had to rent it. And that's a picture of it right there. It had multiple lenses. I can't say that was the size of lens that he had on there, but it was not a cheap camera. It was a pretty nice camera. And he they come upon this creature, and he actually had so he was a rodeo rider and a gymnast, and he actually practiced jumping off his horse while grabbing this camera out of his saddlebag. He had one tie tied and one tie not tied, so he could yank the tie, reach in, grab that, and jump off the horse at the same time. Very athletic guy. Not a very big guy. I think he was 5'2", so pretty small guy. But this picture in particular is important. Jeff, if you can zoom in on the right button on the right side. Yeah, that one right there. So that's the speed setting. So there was a lot of consternation over this, because what happened was 24 frames per second is the normal speed that you film at. And that's the normal speed that film is replayed at. And if you do that, the video of Patty looks kind of silly. It looks jerky. She moves quickly. There's lots of bouncing around. It doesn't look right. That's because at some point in all of the commotion, that dial, which does not have detents, it's a continuous dial, got turned down to when Roger was questioned, he said 18, maybe 18 frames per second. But as you can see, there isn't an 18. They think he just couldn't see it very well, which I completely understand. The 6 maybe look like an 8, and they've done some analysis and proven that it's more like 18 to 19 frames per second. When you play it at the proper speed, 18 to 19 frames per second, she suddenly takes on much more heft and has much more weight in the film. So that's just one of the things that's really important about the camera. This was not a standard issue camera. This wasn't the kind of camera that most families owned. It was actually a pretty decent camera. And he had practiced how to use it. And just unfortunate that it wasn't at 24, because at 24 frames per second, you wouldn't have had as much motion blur. And there was a little bit. That was one of the other indicators that it wasn't at 24 frames per second. So, so anyway, that then leads us to the very famous film that's the second most viewed film in history, only second to the Kennedy assassination. And I did not realize until I read Dr. Jeff Meldrum's book how well documented all of this encounter. With the number of casts they had, I think it's still the most casts of any encounter, and the only one that we have film of and casts. So there's just a lot more that was known about this case than any other one, and it's kind of become the standard. And there's a lot of motion related to how she was moving that has sort of set the bar for then judging new video today as to whether or not is it real or not. I think we could argue for till the end of time whether or not it's a suit or not, but I think there's enough evidence at this point that it was not a suit. They took this to any special effects person they could find in the day. They took it to Disney. Disney said that the animatronics guys, the engineers, said we couldn't do this in 10 years. There's no way.
Right.
We have no way of doing this.
Well, you look at some of the things like this right here. The thigh muscle right here, and then the calf muscle right here.
Right.
If that was a suit, that would be really baggy in that area. It's not going to be that tight. They didn't have spandex back then.
No. Right.
To make
there was no elastic in clothing at that time. So there was no way to make the suit form fit, be tight on the skin. The other thing, and I think Russ actually pointed this out, when you watch that film, at no point does she look down where she's stepping.
Yes, he did mention that. Yeah.
You try putting on a mask and walk through a debris-filled creek bed like that and not fall on your face.
Right.
You will look down. So that one fact in and of itself, to me, really carries a lot of weight. So it's just a really good, really good film. There's a lot of information in it. There's even more than I realized when I, first started getting into this. So like you said, we could talk about this film for a long, long time. But they did talk to a special effects guy.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. I was looking to see if I had his name, and I did.
Bill Munns, Munns.
Yes.
Yep.
Bill Munns. Yeah. And
well
it's
known
funny
in
because
the special effects arena.
Yeah, and he said 100% not a man in a suit. He goes, I can't
way.
tell you what it is, but I
No.
can tell you what it isn't, and it's 100% it's not a man in a suit.
Yep.
So this still stands the test of time as a good film of something that looks like a Bigfoot, of what
Yep.
people describe as a Bigfoot. That is
Right.
not hoaxed. It's not a man in a suit.
Yep.
Yeah, best proof ever, I guess. And again, until I see one for myself, and then you talk about the fact that it was a female, because you can clearly see that, you know, um, she's got breasts. So
Yep.
I mean, you can tell that by looking at that angle right there. So
Right.
it's like, well, I don't know. It's uh Robert's over here. You talking to me in from Discord, sending me
Oh.
messages. So anyway, sorry about that. I got distracted, Robert. Thank you. So anyway, yeah. So it is good proof, I guess. It's, you can't dispute. I mean, like Mike just said, this thing has been analyzed up and down and sideways, and it seems like it's the real deal.
Yeah.
So
Interesting
that
stuff.
had taken us. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just interesting stuff. I think like we said, we can talk a long time about this. It might be a good topic for a separate podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So the finally what they end up doing in the episode 13, they get together with they kind of take on a whole new thing here, a different way of, now they've kind of narrowed down with all the activity, the things that were thrown at them, the thermal hits, the eye shine, the sounds that they got, the crunching and following, and the bird tags. I mean, all the things that happened, they kind of narrowed down a certain section in this area that they're investigating. They kind of narrowed it down to a certain, a much smaller area in the forest. So what they did was they put together a different idea. They got horses from Mireya and this lady here, and I don't think I got her name. I didn't get her name. Anyway, she's from a horse ranch nearby somewhere, and so they bring out some horses for them to go around, because that's where, again, talking about Gimlin, they were riding horses when they went out. And it's a good way, because a horse will travel through the woods making the same types of sounds as a regular four-footed animal. It's less likely to spook a Bigfoot or something. I've been on horseback many times. We owned horses when I was younger, and I've seen deer and all kinds of animals while we were out riding, because they make a different sound going through the woods than humans do walking and breaking branches and all that kind of stuff. So they're less likely to run from you. But anyway, so they were doing that. So they go on the horseback. Ronnie gets set up down in the valley, and Russ is up on the hill watching from a higher level. And they get Pete Kelsey. Oh, but before, and they also kind of drop back and they get Pete Kelsey to go. This was when we were still talking about the section with Patty and the Gimlin film. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there, but they actually had Pete Kelsey come out. Now, Pete Kelsey, if any of you remember, he's been on his Skinwalker Ranch. He's been here in this. Where else has he been? He's been on several different TV shows.
National Geographic he had a show on there.
Yep. He's the LiDAR expert. So he was out, and he's the one that saw the figure that was moving. And when he had it handheld and he was going through the woods, and he picked up like a figure that was walking in front of him on, a bipedal figure walking in front of him. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
It turned out very, very interesting. And it really, really spooked him. Well, he went out to the area where the Patterson-Gimlin film was taken. And they wanted to try to get an estimate of how tall Patty was. How can you do that? Well, they went out with the LiDAR and they scanned that same area. And then they went back and then analyzed the data. They were able to match up the scans with the trees that are still there after all these years, many of them. They matched it up, lined it up just right to try to get an idea of how tall Patty was. Now, And you've seen Bryce when he is finally being told from the guy how tall Patty is. He was kind of disappointed because they came up with what, 6'2", was it?
6'3".
6'3", yes. Okay, so and then Bryce was saying, well, okay, males and females and many species of animals, the males are generally a little bit bigger, taller than the females are. So you could estimate the male being 7 to 8 foot tall, the female if being 6'3". But Mike, you had a different take on this.
Yeah, so fantastic work. Fantastic to have that area, Bluff Creek, that area of where the sighting was, documented in LiDAR. So it's virtual now. We'll always have it. The only issue I had is right at the very end when they showed how they measured her, she never is stopped standing straight up so that you can measure her full height.
No.
They measured her in position at stride. And so that to me easily, knocks off a couple of inches right there because, we know that she was leaned forward about 30 degrees from vertical. She's leaned forward and her knees are always bent. There was actually an analysis done not long after the film was made with a gentleman that was 6'5.5", and they had him walk the same path, and that was a pretty good match. So 6'3" in position, I believe, but I don't believe that's her full height. I think at full height she's probably 6'5", 6'6", and there's some theories that she may not have been a very old female. She may have been a juvenile female. So we don't know.
Somebody else said here too. Yeah, young female. Yep.
Yeah. So to me, that's not. There's nothing wrong with 6'3", 6'5", 6'6". That's okay.
That's bigger than me. I'm 6 foot.
Yeah.
So
the difference is, I'm guessing she outweighs you, Jeff.
Oh,
by a couple pounds.
I'm 178, 180.
Yeah. No, she was much heavier than that.
I would be scared to death running into her in the woods. She's
got some big thighs, big arms. I mean, her arms are as big as my thighs. But they did. Patterson and Gimlin tried jumping off of tree stumps with their cowboy boots. And granted, those guys, they're both pretty small guys. Like I said, Patterson was 5'2". Gimlin, I don't think, is a whole lot much more than that. But they could barely make a dent in the ground. And she, made significant imprints into the ground.
Yeah, they got several.
Talking much heavier.
Yeah.
But
she does
pretty interesting. Great use of technology. Fantastic.
Yeah, that LiDAR, man, that stuff is fantastic.
Cool.
It is. It's truly fantastic. I really like it. So anyway, all right. So I'm sorry about that, folks. I got a little ahead of myself there and skipped that part that I saw it in my notes, and that's why I wanted to go back and talk about it because it was important. And Pete Kelsey, he's been on the show. I've got a link down below. If you want to actually hear what Pete has to say about all this kind of stuff, check out the link below. There's a link in here for the interview that I did with Pete Kelsey. It's down there. You can check it out. It's on YouTube, and it's free to watch, of course, for everybody. So anyway. But that's interesting stuff that guy does, man. I tell you what, he's got one of the greatest jobs in the world.
Very cool stuff.
To go on all these different places and scan all these different things that he does is really interesting. There he is there, Pete, right there. And that's when they went through and they were doing the analysis.
Scan, the LiDAR.
The LiDAR scan in the woods. This gentleman here that Ronnie took into the woods. Now, this is another area that the folks at Skinwalker Ranch insiders talk about doing this, and I've heard it spoken of. I don't know that much about it, but I am beginning to learn about remote viewing. And John, you've talked about remote viewing too a little bit. I know that you have some knowledge in this area, but this gentleman here, they took out to the woods. Chris Duncan is his name. And they took Chris out there, and Chris decided that he was going to go out there with Ronnie because Ronnie was doing the meditation and all of that, and had him sit down, and he started to sketch out some stuff. And we'll get to see in the further episodes, I think, of if any of this came true. But he was talking about like a covered bridge. Now, could that have been the train tunnel that he saw? Something similar, and he called it it could be. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about a covered bridge. He talked about a chain link fence that he saw. in his remote viewing. And he said that something was going to take place this particular night that they were in the woods. So after he got done, and I didn't really capture a whole lot. Did you have anything that you wanted to bring up about him? I didn't know if.
Yeah, that I think the other thing that was interesting, he said that I think he said they're here. They're
Yes.
around us now. Right now.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not remote viewing. I mean, they're here right now watching us. That was pretty impressive.
Yep. John, do you have knowledge about remote viewing?
Oh yeah. Russell Targ was a big remote viewer during the Cold War. We Americans, our government had a PSYOPs program involving remote viewing and being able to see, using consciousness to be able to see places that you don't normally see. So it is a science to it. I mean, at least the government took it very seriously at one time. Program was officially shut down, but I still think the program and PSYOPs,
It's still going,
it's going, of course. Yeah, it's being able to sense or see things around you that is beyond your physical sight and sound, and being able to travel your consciousness to different places. Now, I haven't done it myself, but there is a whole science to it. And there's documentation that people have this ability. Whether that's true or not, I personally haven't experienced it, but I can't rule it out.
Right.
As a science. And certainly our government took it very seriously during the Cold War. They had remote viewers that did nothing but spy on the Soviet Union.
And if you watch any of those reports, a lot of their stuff was right on. I mean, they found missing people with remote viewing. They found missing items with remote viewing. And they were able to, like you said, during the Cold War, they were actually able to get intel by remote viewing. So, I mean, there's got to be something to it. Again, it's one of those subjects that I don't know that much about, but I'm beginning to learn as I talk with the folks that are in, and then some of the folks, and I say guys, people at the Skinwalker Ranch Insiders have also talked about this, and they do some of that in there. They have little focus groups where they get together and do these kinds of things. So it's really a science that I'm intrigued by, and I really want to get more information as we go along. But remote viewing, and like Mike said, he had indicated, Duncan did, that indicated that Chris Duncan said that something was going to happen. They were right there near him right then, and that's when Ronnie got up and he said, "Well, he started looking around, getting very active at the moment because he was all in, So anyway, so we'll talk more about the remote viewing as we go along in the next episode. But so one of the last thing to kind of wrap this up here, and this is where I got my little video. There was two things that happened at the end here, and one of them was the orb that Bryce saw on the camera. The other thing was right at the end of episode 13, during the daytime, when they're up in their position, Russell and Zach are up in their position on the hill, and Russell's got the big scope out. And he's looking across, and he's got the camera. He's got his phone hooked to it so that you can see it on the phone as well. And he's watching something over there that he thinks is a bear until it stands up. And that's where.
And I want to make a point too, because I didn't get a chance to tell him this when we were talking to him, that I appreciated the fact that where he positioned himself. Right at the end, when they've seen this, and he's like, "We're gonna go," they look at where Russ and Zach were. They were underneath at the tree line. They were back in the trees, in the shade of the tree,
right.
Long, low, overhanging limbs, and that whatever it was out in the sunshine. Yeah. There is no way possible it could have seen them. If it was out in the sunshine, it could not have seen them back in the shadows. He was in a fantastic, which you would expect, given his military background. Exactly. He was in a fantastic position to observe without being observed. Exactly. So, plus he said that was 1 mile away. As the crow flies, that was a mile away. So that was kind of at the limit of his spotting scope capability. But that was impressive. All
right, so I put this together. I got 2 clips on here, and I can play them for you a couple of times. The first clip is of Bryce, and he's looking at the orb on the camera. And watch this thing, and I'll play it a couple of times for you, but watch this thing because it kind of pops in and out, and then it does like a weird flash. And I don't know. I mean, I'm an orb guy. I love dealing with these orbs, so I don't know, what to make of this. But check this out. All right, I'm going to play. There's no sound. It's just simply the video. So we'll run through this here the first time. You'll see Bryce, and then you'll see what he's looking at. Now, you saw it kind of in, out, and then in, and then move around a little bit, and then flash. It flashed before it left. I'm going to play it one more time, and we can check this out. But that's, to me, that's just. And then the bright flash, and it's gone. What do you make of that? Now, when it disappears, that's the thing. When it disappears, there's nothing there.
Right. It does almost move like it's part of something. Mm-hmm. It's not. It doesn't look to me like it's free floating. It's almost like the part of like a face or something is illuminated.
That's what John was saying.
Because John, you said it almost looked like a face. That's the first time I've looked at it in that light. No pun intended. But that movement, if you watch it, it almost moves like I said, like it's anchored to the ground, not like it's a free floating orb like we've seen on Skinwalker. It's kind of floating around almost like a little bug or something. Yeah. This almost moved like someone just leaned forward and then boop, snapped out and was gone.
Yeah. I'll play it again real quick just so you can get another look at that. But again, and it's got that weird shape to it. It's really an odd shape. So there it appears, and then it's gone. And when it's gone, there's nothing there. I mean, and you saw that little movement it made, like a little tussle, and then that flash, and it was just gone that quick. It was just flash and gone. I don't know, folks. What do you guys make of that out there in the chat? Did you see that before? Is that what they call ball lightning looks like? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, somebody was saying remote viewing is still done today. That was April. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. It's
that was a security camera. It wasn't looking through a window. Yeah, that was footage from a camera outside.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I think that was really weird. Now this next clip, the last one I have, is when Russell and Zach were up in that area that Mike just mentioned in the shade there, and he's looking about a mile away with a spotting scope, and he sees something that he thinks is a bear on all fours, and he's watched this for quite a bit. I only have a little clip of it.
He said he watched it for like a half an hour.
Yeah. He's watching this thing for quite a while, and then it stands up, and that's the part that I caught here at the end, and I'll play that for you real quick. And then it stands up right there, and you can see an arm right here. Or is it a paw? I don't know, but it stands up, and he's telling Zach, and then it walks off in 2 feet. And I'll play that again. So there it is, bent over, and then it stands up. And you can, like I said, you can see an arm. You can almost see 2 different legs. And then it turns and walks away. Now, when it walks away, check out the top. I'm gonna play that again. Look at when it turns to the side and walks away. Look at its top of its head, and you'll see a telltale. Look at the top of the head right there. Now, when it turns, you'll see it even better. Did you catch that? It looked like it had that conical, like Bigfoot pictures often show this hair kind of conical, make a point on the top of the head.
Yep.
Too upright to be a bear. Looks like
It's a biped. It's absolutely
Yeah.
a animal that walks on two legs.
Yeah, it was hard to see, but right at the very end, you could see that again, that trailing leg.
Yep.
As it picks up,
Mhm.
it picks up to almost 90 degrees. Humans don't do that, not naturally.
No.
That again, another indicator from the Patty film.
Yeah, and the arm. Yeah, that's what I
Yep.
saw too. That's what got me. I was watching. I'll play it one more time. I just love this. It's so cool. And this got Russ. I mean, it got him going.
Yeah, the look in his
That's what
face,
stands up.
that was fantastic. He was blown away.
Yeah.
Because like you said, he'd been watching it for like a half an hour. And then to see it stand up and walk away.
Yeah.
Crazy.
He gathered up his stuff so fast. He's like, Zach, let's go.
We're going across.
We're going across.
Zach's like, really?
Yeah.
Because that was a long ways. I mean, that was like he said, that was a mile
It was
as the crow flies.
Yeah, in the
Had to go down a valley and up.
It took him an hour to get there.
Yeah. Go.
That's a good point. I don't know. I'll play it again, and when it stopped there, it doesn't. That I noticed that too, and that's a good point. And I'll stop it when it stands up. You can kind of get a look right there. But one thing you see, the arm doesn't look like it comes all the way down, but I think the arm is not
holding something.
I think it's holding something.
Yeah.
Because you see, if you watch that again, you see it looks like the arm moves like it comes up. There for just a second, you'll watch it close right before that stand up. You see it looks like it
scoops up a little bit.
Scoops up a little bit. See, and then it even picks it up even farther. So I don't think we're seeing the full length of that arm there or paw.
When he gets over there too, he sees evidence that it was working on something. He found a rock and rock strikes on another rock, like it was smashing something with a rock that it was holding in its hand and something. Something.
Yep.
And then of course, Russ being Russ, what does he do? He picks up this 5-pound rock that was being used by whatever that was and puts it in his 93-pound backpack. He's already got the heaviest backpack around. What's he do? Sticks a 5-pound rock in it. Just like that guy.
Yeah. Cradling a baby. Oh, that's a thought. Yeah. Maybe it was letting the baby, cleaning it up after it did whatever, babies do.
Did Zach point out what direction it headed? It headed to the government land.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were right next to.
You're giving away next week's show.
Well, teaser.
Yeah, because they're on the edge of the land that the government took over, and I don't know if they bought it or if they just said, we're taking this over. Nobody's allowed to go in here anymore. And it was a land that was supposedly a hot spot for Bigfoots. And they confiscated the land and wouldn't let anybody go on it. So they could not cross that line and go in there. They had to stay away from that government land or that particular closed off government. All of this is, in government land to some degree, but anyway, so they weren't allowed to go in there. So interesting stuff. I mean, this, the orb, I just love orbs. I mean, that kind of stuff. And that to sit there and watch that orb, pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out, pop in, move a little bit, and then flash out. I mean, that just to me is like, what in the heck is that possibly?
That was crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's very crazy. So I don't know. Well, that was episodes 11, 12, and 13, folks. Next week, we're going to finish it up with 14, 15. And then there was an episode that they added on with, it was like where they brought everybody together to get some details of the kind of combine all the stuff that they saw. And that's kind of 15 was kind of that way too. But we'll get through those. We're going to do those again next week. That'll be next Thursday night at 7:30. We'll go through those and get your thoughts on it and see what you guys think as we get ready. And we still don't know when season 4 starts. Ronnie told me that he would come on the show once he knows. Now he did a little podcast thing that was he had already set up that he was on the other night, and it's available. I think Robert just had it. Somebody had it on here. It's a Zoom conference. I'll see if I can link it, but you can go watch it. It's out. Where did you find this, Robert? I don't want to. I'm a little wondering if I should post it until I know if it was free for all to talk about. But it was very interesting. It was basically well, if you found it, it must be okay to. I'll share it over here real quick. I'm going to post it here in the chat. You can click on that link there if you want. It put it up in 2. That's not going to work, is it? Sorry. Yeah. Join our Discord and you can go over there and watch it. Or you can take 2 snaps of that right there because it's a long link. It's really awful. But anyway, you might just be able to find it. I know Robert's in the chat here. Maybe he can tell us where he found it. But you can check it out. It's Ronnie LeBlanc, and he is talking about it's basically the presentation he does when he goes to conferences and things like that. Very well done. And he does talk about, he was taking questions. I asked him a question and he answered it. And it was the one about, do you think that, if Bigfoot exists, can it see infrared? And he believes that they can. That was he answered my question there too. So very, very interesting. So we'll get him on the show one of these days. And also Dr. Mireya Mayer, we'll get her on the show as well. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Eva. Appreciate it. I tell you what, it's Mike and John helping make the show. I tell you what, it's I love having them on. Both of them, I've got a lot of knowledge in all this stuff and cryptids and things like that. And like Mike has said, no one is an expert in Bigfoot. A lot of people.
If they tell you that they're an expert, run.
Yes, right. Oh, Robot's got a question. Let's see.
There's
sorry about that.
Yeah, there are not very many pictures of them in winter, and not many of the first-hand accounts that I listen to are in winter either. And I don't think they hibernate. I think they may migrate because people that have them on their property in habituation circumstance, there's periods of time during the year, certain times during the year, where they have the activity, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So I think they move, probably more so than hibernate. I don't think they hibernate like a bear.
Yeah.
But it is odd. You don't see them very often in snow.
Right.
So
unless they're a Yeti, of course, and then they live
different creature.
Yeah.
Different creature.
Yeah, with the different hair and hair that is meant for that. And that still boggles my mind about how an animal, even a horse, will put on more hair in the wintertime and shed that hair in the summer, but how it keeps so warm in cold temperatures. And I'm just, because I get cold wearing this and a jacket and hat and boots and gloves and and yet they can be out there with thick hair and be just fine. So yeah. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. All right, last final thoughts for these 3 episodes, guys.
It's good stuff. More good stuff. I can talk about Patterson-Gimlin forever.
Oh yeah,
know, right?
We have to do a show on that. Absolutely, just the footage.
I agree. Yeah, we're gonna break that down. Because obviously we're gonna finish up before season 4 starts of Expedition Bigfoot. So we're gonna have some other things. We do have some people, and I keep throwing this out there for you all. If you have some sort of an experience that you would like to share, please get a hold of me. JFree906@gmail.com. Very simple. JFree906@gmail.com. Send me an email. Let me know that you have a story you'd like to share. If you know somebody, tell them. I want to get people on here and have them share their experiences if they're willing to do so. This is a place where they can come and tell their story without being told they're foolish or whatever. We want to hear it, and we want to share it with everyone else. So, let me know if you know of anyone that wants to do that. JFree906@gmail.com. Let me know, and I will have you come on. We do have one. I have one for sure. And we know Christian Roper has had some experiences, so he may come on with us and talk about this as well. So, all right, folks, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. We will see you again next Thursday night for wrapping up season number 3 of Expedition Bigfoot with episodes 14, 15, and then the little add-on. And we'll go from there. All right. We'll catch you next time right here on the JFree906 podcast. Good night, everyone.